some research showed that you're taking in about 1 credit card worth of plastic a week. 40% of your brain has microplastics in it.
I told my dad about the percentage of people's brains that were made out of plastic now. And I don't know if anyone else on the planet has this type of response, but it was like, isn't plastic inert? Like, who cares? That's one way to think about it. It's probably not great to have plastic in your brain.
It's like, how badly do you want to feel good? How you feel will directly impact everything. How you show up as a mother, how you show up as a partner. It all comes down to how good you feel. Don't go at it all at once. Do it piece by piece, because if you go from never having done supplements or never having done peptides to being stricter with your diet or being more conscious about going to a restaurant that might be seed oil free or how you're cooking at home, and it can get overwhelming. You can't out-hack trauma. You can't out-supplement trauma. The beautiful thing about plant medicine is it will rip through the bullshit, and it's you against you. And it will take everything you need to work on and put it right in front of you like a deck of cards and say, do you want to do this or not? And if you want to do this, this is the path forward.
Iman Hasan, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to finally sit down with you and chat.
Yeah, this should be fun. I haven't, you know what? I haven't had very many women on my podcast.
Really?
Had a few, actually in the last month, maybe since the pregnancy, I've had a couple of them on. But for biohacking, I've mostly been talking to men about it. Maybe, I'm not sure why. I think there's probably more men in the space in the last while, but I wanted to bring you on to discuss biohacking, how you got into it. So before we get started, can you just give a brief description of who you are and what it is you do?
Yes. So I first and foremost, I'm the founder and CEO of IHC Agency. We are a full scope PR marketing social media agency based in the US, headquartered in Miami, but we have 15 employees, going to 20 this year, and opening operations in the Middle East.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. So I started the agency about 5 years ago, and I worked in luxury at that time for about 20 years. I started my career at Vogue.com back in the day when I was graduating from college in London.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I went to school in London. I lived there for 17 years. And so I started at Tatler Magazine, then moved up to Vogue.com when it was becoming digital. And so that's kind of all. I always knew luxury, retail, fashion, hospitality. And then 5 years ago, I kind of started my own agency. And IHC was literally born in the pandemic. What a crazy time to start a company.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Started as a consultancy, and then we started moving towards an agency model. And back in 2022, my mom passes away from turbo cancer. And and I come back, and I remember I told my managing director, who's still our managing director today, I said, at that point we were servicing luxury, hospitality, design, and retail and fashion. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. This is just not me. I want to do something different. And she's like, well, what direction do you want to head in? I was like, I really want to work in health and wellness. And the industry wasn't around like it is today, you know? It's one of the largest growing industries now. And she said, well, 80% of our portfolio is luxury, retail, hospitality, all of this stuff. It's going to take a minute to change it. And since 2022 to now, we're entering our 5th year this November. It'll be 5 years for us. 90% of our portfolio at the agency is health and wellness.
Wow.
Yeah. We're an all-female company, all-female team. And I lived in Dubai, so I'm really interested in opening up there. And so that's launching this year, 2025. The goal is to open in Dubai. And then 2026, the goal is to open a satellite office in Saudi.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm also the host of a podcast called Biohack-it that I started a year ago out of curiosity and passion to talk to people that I wanted to reach, that I'd see online. I'm like, how am I going to get through to this person? How am I going to speak to them? And so Biohack-it was born. And I thank God for the people that support us. And obviously, if you're putting out content, but no one's listening to your content, then where does it go? We scaled on the charts. We're one of the top podcasts in health and wellness and health and fitness, I would say, in the US now.
Wow.
Which has been a real journey.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. I can't believe how much bigger this, I mean, it's finally getting popular, but I guess that's what happens when everybody has a health problem. It's like, okay, nothing I really do matters if I'm sick.
If you don't have your health, you have nothing.
Or if a family member is sick.
Yeah.
It's just like,
my dad had Alzheimer's, and so that was one thing.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, he passed away as well. We didn't speak for about 9 years, but he died, and my mom died of, cancer, ovarian cancer, and then, essentially turbo cancer. So.
Yeah, wild.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so when you say portfolio, does that mean, because I don't know what I'm talking about. Does that mean products or people or
everything?
what?
We work with practitioners. So Dr. Will Cole is a client of ours. So for him, we do let's say his social and his marketing, his brand to brand partnerships. We have a lot of doctors. So we represent a lot of doctors, clinics, supplement companies, products, sleep tech, health tech, even we work with restaurants like Sweetgreen. So we run the gamut. And we're also getting aggressively into wellness hospitality because there's this whole shift in the industry now that people want to travel and live in this wellness bubble. So hotels are moving towards it, hospitality is moving towards it, restaurants are getting non-toxic. So we're also building that out right now.
Oh, I love that.
And we're 360 basically. So we do everything. You can come to us as a brand and we just as a concept, and we can incubate you, help you with your branding, build out your website, figure out how to scale your email marketing database, what is your brand identity, how to get your products built. So we can do everything soup to nuts.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's helpful. If you guys aren't on Peterson Academy, you're missing out. There are over 25 8-hour courses on there from people like Vervaeke, Michael Malice, Keith Campbell. My dad has 3 8-hour courses out now, including Nietzsche, Sermon on the Mount, and Intro to Personality, which is excellent. Brian Keating's on there. David Eagleman on brain plasticity just came out, which I love. Go to petersonacademy.com and come in and see what it's like. We have a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can poke around the website, look at the courses, and get a refund if you want, no strings attached. Any age is welcome. The courses are university level. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. So my dad's on tour all the time. I used to travel way more than I do. Yeah. And traveling was such an issue with the environmental sensitivities. Yeah. So we'd go, okay, what hotel? Well, we probably want a newer hotel because the air quality is generally better, not always. And are there any floors that don't have rugs because of the dust allergies and everything? Are there any floors that don't have down? Is it if I go into a down hotel room and they're shaking out the blankets, I'm
absolutely not.
Oh, death. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so why Dubai and Saudi?
So Dubai is booming right now. It is really gunning to become the health and wellness hub of the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing a lot of work in there. I've heard this little rumor because I was just there for 3.5 weeks. I heard this rumor that, His Highness in Dubai is going to do a whole push towards health, wellness, and longevity. So they're really gunning to take over the space. The market is very underdeveloped. People are coming in, but people don't fully know what they're doing. The agencies in the Middle East are not the standard of the agencies in the US. We are one of the largest consumer markets in the world. We're also one of the most sophisticated consumer markets in the world. So the way we market, scale brands, the way we think of concepts is very different. So I was like, why don't we take what we've done here so long for so many years, done it well, we're getting known in the industry for this, and take that model and repeat it in Dubai, in the Middle East. Why Saudi? It's the second biggest growing market. PIF just did a whole, and if you're listening to this and you don't know what PIF is, it's a Saudi sovereign fund. They've just done a whole investment into women's health. They're trying to build out this whole vertical of women's health when it comes to your health, your hormones, training, all of this stuff. And it's being led by the princess, who's an Al Saud and who's the ambassador to the US from Saudi Arabia. So there's a huge push coming into health, wellness, longevity, healing. So they're really trying to kind of catch up. And I do think they have a lot of potential. And I think Dubai is just a booming place to be. It's an incredible city. It's very multicultural. It is safe. It is so clean, Mikhaila. You could literally eat off the floor. It's that clean. It is super safe. There's literally no crime. And it's a wonderful place to be. So, and I like their vision. I like what they've done as a country, as a region, what they're doing over there.
Yeah, yeah. I really like Dubai. I've been there a number of times.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And it's great. And I feel so I lived in Dubai back in 2010 to 2013. And I went back after 10 years now. I just went in December. I was blown away by how much they've advanced even from them. And I do feel Dubai is going to be the city of the future. It is very AI focused. It's very tech focused. They are very much about making things easy.
Yeah,
bringing in
yes.
technology.
Yeah.
They're really gunning for that. I went to buy a SIM card, a local SIM card. This is how seamless the process was. I went to the local store and I literally walked in. There were machines. You give your ID, you put it into the machine, you push in a number. It's automated. Everything is electronical. Over here, You go to a T-Mobile or an AT&T, you're literally standing in line for an hour and a half trying to see somebody. And I'm like, we are supposed to be, you know, a progressive first world country. Why have we not adapted technology more into our day-to-day?
Yeah. I wonder if it's just because our, like the American culture, it's not that old, but it's older than what's going on in Dubai, you know, at least the kind of more up-to-date part. And there's so much red tape. Coming from Canada, going from Canada to the US is like, oh, everything's easy in the US. And then you go from the US to somewhere like Dubai and it's like, oh, there's like more, there's a higher percentage of entrepreneurs and things are easier to get done because there's less red tape.
I also think it comes down to a cultural mentality. I think we have thought for a long time, I'll talk from an American perspective, that we're better than everybody else. We're greater than everybody else. So we don't maybe have the same push to prove ourselves the way the Middle East does, who is a newer generation. That's a newer culture. So they're gunning to be the best because they haven't seen themselves as the best.
Yeah.
And we get complacent. Sure. And I think in a larger setting, completely outside of just talking about health and wellness, America, unless it shifts its narrative to try to level itself up to where, you know, to be the great again, we're going to lose out long term. Because you have other countries like China coming through. Yeah. That are hyper advanced. You even look at the way Chinese children, what they're learning in Montessori versus American kids. It's a world of difference. The way they're learning, the way they still practice, the way they're training their brains. We are putting our kids onto screens. Our children's brains are going through mush. They're chronically inflamed. We're feeding them processed foods. 73% of the American diet is processed food.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's
so bad. I shouldn't even be laughing at that. That's crazy.
But it's terrible. And, you know, people like you and I are, you know, we have options, we do our research and stuff, but a lot of people don't. Mm-hmm. And so we have to really sit back and think about if we want America to be, you know, making America great, it also comes down to how are we preparing with technology, with advancement, with food, with nutrition, with education, and making sure our country is set up for the next, you know, century. Yeah, for sure. I think things are changing though. And I'm super excited about this change. I'm just excited to be in a place and a time like today. I know. It's fun, huh? Yeah. I can't believe people are talking about health as if it's cool. Instead of just being like, you quack. You quack. Yeah. You're like out there. You know, when I said this the other day, if I had said the word turbo cancer in 2022 when my mom died, and I knew what it was, if I had dared said it on a podcast, if I dared brought it up in public, people would look at me like I had three heads. But with this whole Maha movement and Bobby Kennedy and all these incredible people around him, they have given people like us a voice and allowed us to question and ask, be curious, and also look further into what's really happening with our health. Okay, so on the turbo cancer front, so my mom had cancer that she like narrowly escaped from. And it was the same. It was, I haven't heard of, I've heard of turbo cancer. I don't know what it is. So I want to get into that. I just assume very fast growing, which was a very aggressive cancer that was like super rare. And then it was like, you have 8 months. It was like, sorry, what? Like what? When does that happen? So that's what a turbo cancer is. It's so just basically like instant. Cancer that comes on super fast. It's very aggressive. And by the time you do get diagnosed with it, it's pretty far gone. And my mom, that's what happened. So she wasn't even leaving the house. She lived in London because that's where I grew up for 17 years. So she was there and she wasn't even leaving the house because obviously the UK was completely shut down. I mean, I lived in Miami that opened within 2 months, but the UK had very strict, hard restrictions. Yeah, like Canada. Yeah, ugh. Everything was like turned upside down. She's not leaving the house, but for some reason, her GP thought she should get vaccinated and boosted. But I was like, why? This woman's already been compromised once. She's obviously in remission from cancer and she's been clear for a while. Why would you do this to her? And for some reason, they gave into the fear mongering, whatever. Mikhaila, literally, she got the booster. It was, I think, December 2021 or January 2022. And we were told at that point, a month into it, we were told she has 6 months. She died within 90 days of that. Literally 90 days. That's crazy. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. And my sister, she lived with my sister, and I was always, because I had a lot of health issues growing up, and then I moved to America, and it's probably one of the best things that happened to me because I lived with family and lived in Dubai and lived in the UK for so long. When I moved to America 11 years ago now, I was kind of never lived here. You know, I'm born American, but I'd never lived here prior. And I had to come here and make a life for myself from scratch. And during that process, because I had the freedom to not have, you know, my family in my ear and people I've known in my ear, I started discovering things and figuring things out on my own. And I really wanted to heal my own body. And that's how I found the world of alternative medicine and functional medicine, what it means and what it means to be like, look at the baseline of what your health issue is and kind of work backwards from there.
Okay. So what was your health like, I guess, prior to biohacking, and what did you improve?
So as a child, I was chronically ill. And I'm Pakistani, and I come from a big pharma culture where they just love bombarding you with medication. My mother literally had a medicine drawer. And so because I would get sick a lot as a kid, she would constantly give me antibiotics.
Yeah.
I was raised with so much Ciproxin, which is one of these antibiotics, it destroyed my gut. And that happens. I'm also have other things going on. So I'm constantly developing ovarian cysts. And so I've had 3 major surgeries for ovarian cysts by the time I get into my 20s. One of my ovaries is reconstructed. They took out too much follicular tissue during that process. And I have migraines. I'm constantly not well. I have brain fog, all of this stuff. Then around like 6-7 years ago, I meet this one functional medicine doctor in Miami, and he said, you're estrogen dominant, right? You have I don't remember the word. What is the thing for the yeast infection when you have like a lot of yeast?
Is it Candida?
Candida, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. So I meet this doctor in Miami. He says, your estrogen, you have toxic estrogen levels. Your body's producing way too much estrogen. It's not clearing out. You have Candida. Your gut is completely destroyed. You have bad mitochondrial health. We're going to start working backwards. And that's the first time I got introduced to peptides. And I started getting to that and lowering inflammation in my body.
Did the peptides help?
100% it helped. I haven't had a migraine in 6 years. My body's not producing any more cysts.
Okay? Really? Is this just from peptides, or did you make dietary changes?
I've done so many things since then, right? Then I learned about food and like making sure that, listen, my body likes a lot of protein. I'm somebody who can't be plant-based. I don't like it. I don't want to be high quality meat. Grass-fed, grass-finished, trying to get into all of this stuff. I got into raw dairy. So that's when I started discovering all of this alternative raw. My mom thought I was a quack. My mother would look at me and be like, what is this? The funniest story, she comes to stay with me once in Miami. And my mother had a really heavy Pakistani accent. And she's like, what is this in your fridge? And I was like, it was the insulin, like the syringes, right? And she's like, what, are you on drugs and you didn't tell me? What is this that you're taking? And I'm like, it's peptides. She's like, what is this nonsense? What doctor has given you this? And I'm like, lady, it's for the best. But she didn't know, and she was like, oh my daughter's shooting heroin or some shit. She has a drug problem. I don't know what she's up to. But she literally thought I was a quack. And over that journey, I've started repairing and healing my body. Now, obviously, I've met so many incredible people in the community that I've got into advanced testing, so I can test environmental toxins. I can see exactly what my toxin burden level is. I can see what's going on exactly with my hormones. So now I do testing every 3 to 4 months. I have incredible MDs I work with. And so started with peptides. Then I got into all of these other things like, EBU and kind of like doing this thing called lipid replacement therapy, also known as a PK protocol. Like I've gone through this whole rabbit hole because I had 2 parents who died from chronic disease. And by the way, both diseases, 100% preventable.
If you're the type of person who on occasion likes to partake in a few alcoholic beverages, but also you don't want to wreak havoc on your body and you're health conscious, you should have my hangover supplement After Party at your house, available at all times. It's made of dihydromycin, no fillers, just pure dihydromycin, which helps break down acetaldehyde, which is what ethanol, alcohol, converts into in your body that poisons you, damages your organs, damages your brain when you drink. It's not the ethanol that feels fun that's the issue exactly, it's what it breaks down into that damages your brain and organs. If you could break down that poison faster, wouldn't you? I cannot explain over an ad how well this works. So if you do try it, you can get a 30-day money-back guarantee if you buy through fullerhealth.com. You can also buy it through Amazon, super fast shipping, but if you want the money-back guarantee through Amazon, you need to email us through the website to get it. So don't take my word for it. Read the reviews, try it, fullerhealth.com or After Party on Amazon. Okay, lipid
replacement therapy.
What is that?
So, the thing I sent you from Body Bio, the PC?
Yeah.
Phosphatidylcholine. So lipid replacement therapy is essentially these incredible IVs. And the doctor I see is Dr. Christine Perfetta in Morristown. She's amazing. And she has her own IP on how she's developed this IV protocol. And some people know it as a PK protocol, but she has her own version of it she does. And lipid replacement therapy is really refortifying and cleaning out your cells. So one of the things that's happened since the pandemic is the COVID-19 vaccine. The spike protein is damaging your cell membrane. If your cell membrane is compromised and you do not have healthy cells, what's going to happen? Disease is going to enter the body. So lipid replacement therapy is essentially taking out the toxins from your cells and refortifying. Your cells are made of this gooey, gushy little membrane that goes around them. So it's detoxifying the cells and refortifying that cell membrane. So she has a bunch of things that she puts into her IVs, PC being one. So you're doing high dose liquid PC, you're doing high dose butyrate. And then according to what you're working with the levels of toxins that you have, she does this really customized test. She used to do it out of Europe. It was called the IGL, but now she has another lab she's using in the US. And she tests you for every single environmental toxin, every single heavy metal you can think of, and then starts clearing it out. And at the end of that, so she starts with that, which is a lipid replacement therapy. Then she moves into a very custom protocol, a parasite protocol with pharmaceutical drugs. That is just what your body needs for parasites. Then she moves, if you need the NAD combined with something else. In my case, she did 2 passes of Ibu. Now she's come up with this plasma exchange treatment that's going around on the internet as well as just kind of entered the US. A bunch of these people have it.
Hasn't Brian Johnson been talking about that?
Brian Johnson's been talking about it. Caleb Barnes just did it. Dr. Mindy Pelz just did it after the fires in LA with Nexthouse. So now that's something, because I'm on a fertility journey right now, right? So, and this is the other thing, what they don't teach you. In the Eastern world, you prepare your body for at least 1 year before you even try to conceive. That is not something that exists in America, in the Western world. You're just like, oh, I should get pregnant, and then all of a sudden I need to go clean. No. There's a pre-preparation that goes into both the man and the woman to make sure you're set up for a healthy pregnancy. And 50% of miscarriages that happen actually happen because of the men, because their DNA is fragmented. And that's something we're not taught or learned or, spoken about.
That's definitely not what it feels like when it happens.
But it is 50%. It's down to the man. And another thing that people don't realize is when you have a partner, you're sharing each other's microbiome. So it's not just the woman who has to get clean. It is also the man.
That was a horrifying thought.
Yeah, you're sharing, your microbiome is shifting according to your partner's health as well. So if you're really healthy and really clean, but your partner's, okay with having toxins, that's going to intertransfer, right? So this whole concept, and when it came to also fertility, is because I started going on this fertility journey, realizing my levels were not good, and learning so much about the space, learning about how important your mitochondrial health is when it comes to fertility, understanding the role of inflammation in the body when it comes to fertility. And all of this stuff was something so eye-opening to me. So back to your question, I got into health because I wasn't well, saw my mom pass away, fell into it through curiosity and self-discovery, started healing my own body, realizing I don't ever get sick anymore, thank God, touch wood. Survived the pandemic pretty well. I think I had like one bout of like COVID that was really bad, and then never again.
I had COVID at least 3 times, just out of curiosity. I was like, is this it? Because it's kind of nasty. Yeah. I lost my sense of smell for 6 months after the first 2 times. I didn't get vaccinated though. I was like, my immune system is too haywire to risk that.
But you're lucky you didn't, because there's all this research coming out that shows what the spike protein is doing to people. There was a recent study that I actually posted about on my Instagram as well. There's a study that came out of South Korea, and they looked at 500,000 people plus, and they're linking the people who actually got the vaccine to Alzheimer's. There's a higher increased risk of Alzheimer's to people who've taken the vaccine.
Oh my gosh.
There's a study. You look it up on PubMed. It's literally on PubMed. And it's crazy, but there's all this new research coming out. And that's where it drove me bonkers. And the reason I also didn't get vaccinated was because I fell greatly into Joe Rogan at the time. And he brought on Dr. Robert Malone. Do you remember the guy? And this guy is like, dude, I came up with the technology and I'm telling you, this is not right. Like, this is the tech. It was not meant for this. This is not adding up. And then they silenced him, and the whole campaign came out about the dirty dozen, and they went after these doctors. Some of those doctors are not even alive today. So, and people can look at this. Look at the campaign around the dirty dozen. And you can look into some of these doctors. And Bobby obviously was on the list. Robert Malone was on the list. Thank God they're still here with us. But there was so much going on. And I was like, things are not adding up. So I told my husband, we are absolutely not getting vaccinated. And so that with my mom's, going back to my mom, my family is like, you cannot come to see her. And I was like, what do you mean I can't come to see her? They're like, you can't come to see her. I lied. I had to go see my mom. I lied. I went to see her. And once my mom passed, my sister looked at me and goes, you did not get vaccinated, did you? I said, absolutely not. I said, because you guys want to all jump off a cliff. I don't agree with this. And I have my whole life ahead of me. I haven't even had kids yet. So you're not allowed to tell me what I am supposed to do or not do. This is a very personal choice.
Wow. I can't believe we went through as a society around the world where they had forced vaccinations that were developed that quickly. And now we're fine. I can't believe all the conspiracies were true. Like at the time I was like, logically, if something's developed that fast, I was like, maybe don't inject it into the entire world.
Maybe don't inject it into pregnant women and children. Kids. Don't inject it into children and pregnant women. And there is other research also showing there was an increase in miscarriages with the women who were vaccinated.
Yeah, I've read that.
But you were crazy if you say, and by the way, there's still some crazy fertility doctors out there who I've seen online who are still promoting the vaccine and flu shots. I'm like, are you well? Like, is everything okay? Like,
not.
Are you paid for my shows? Like, what is going on here? How, if there's even a slight percentage or a doubt that this could lead to a miscarriage or something like that, why would you even suggest it to somebody who's pregnant? Like, it just makes no sense to me.
No, didn't make any sense to me either. I was like, especially once I had COVID already, I was like, I already had it. Like, well, you need the vaccine.
Natural immunity.
Why would I need the vaccine? Like, if it's going to mutate like the flu, like, but I caught the first round of it. It was like, where's the logic here?
They want you to believe that natural immunity is not real. But if you look back at the introduction to the human body to any disease, as far back as polio, the polio scale of the actual like outbreak was already going down when the vaccine was introduced.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Right? Joe Rogan speaks about it. He's like literally pulled up a graph, I think, on one of his podcast episodes. So natural immunity is very, very, very real. But we want to, because we want to profit up people's health and fear, we have told people that that's not possible, that you can't work through natural immunity. But there's, in society, any disease, once it has been like a virus that has been introduced, our bodies have gotten really, really sick, and they've found a way to bounce back once they get used to it. Same thing with the flu. And more people die from the flu than they have died from COVID.
I believe that. The flu this year, I was just talking to you about it. I was sick. I think that it was the pregnancy, so my immune system was dampened. For so long, I was like, I was way sicker this round than I was from COVID, from the flu. It was brutal.
Yeah. And more, you know, there are people who are like fear mongering around the flu or let's say COVID. But what about the fact that more people die in this country from cardiac disease, medical malpractice, and cancer?
Yeah.
So, and two of those things are completely preventable through lifestyle choices. So I'm just like, well, you want to talk about COVID deaths? What about this little bucket over here? Like the number one cause for death in America is cardiac disease. The second is cancer, both lifestyle. And then the third is medical malpractice.
I know. Nobody talks about that either.
Yeah. No. So it's just like you can't cherry pick and choose when you're talking about the health of Americans. And you want to talk about death rates, then let's really look at the percentage of what's really killing people in this country and work backwards. Because it sure as hell ain't, COVID.
Yeah. 100%.
Alone.
Okay, you mentioned parasites. That's something I've like more recently got interested in because I used, like, for my health issues, I used the diet route, which was overwhelmingly successful. But it was like, obviously there's something going on leading to the food sensitivities. And I've just figured out how to lower levels of inflammation, get rid of symptoms, which is great. But like, what's the root cause there? Why is my gut so permeable? All that. So I've gotten into looking into parasites because they're way more common than we grew up knowing about. So how did you get tested? Were these like stool tests, blood tests?
stool test, blood test. So before, like Christine Perfetto, the way she does it, before she even starts you on any sort of protocol, she does really, really, really rigorous testing.
Yeah.
So I gave like 45 vials of blood, literally. Did the stool test, did a saliva test, did a urine test, and then it kind of comes back to her. And she's like, listen, this is how I'm going to treat you. I can pull up, I don't have it on me right now, but it's an exact parasite protocol that she gives. It's a pharmaceutical grade protocol. And ivermectin is one of the things that she includes. And then while you're doing, so after you finish the lipid replacement therapy IVs, you move into the second phase, because she does this in like chapters. So the second chapter of, the detox kind of is parasites. And according to what comes back from your testing, she gives you this compounded parasite, pharmaceutical treatment. You do it for, I think, 3 to 5 days, depending on what you have. But at the same time, she wants you to do colonics, because the parasites get dumped into your gut, and then she wants you to get them removed. So eating really clean during that time is really important. Not eating anything raw, like so sushi and stuff is completely out. Making sure the food you're eating is cooked, it's fermented, and it's warm. It's warm foods. And then basically you also are doing the colonics at the same time. So everything that's being dumped into your gut is then getting pulled out of you. So that's how the chapters she kind of does it in. I don't have the names of the exact, all of the, pills on me or the medication that she gave, but ivermectin was one.
Interesting. Okay.
And there's new research also to show that ivermectin can be cancer preventative.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Which means maybe, and I haven't done enough research into this to like give any type of intelligent response, but if you can treat some types of cancer with antiparasitics, then what? Is it parasites?
There's a lot of research that shows that's a lot of cancer, let's say, is also linked to mineral deficiencies or vitamin deficiencies that people don't want to talk about. Dr. Lee Erin Connelly from California, I don't know if you know about her. She's phenomenal. So she has a functional oncology center in LA. I brought her onto my podcast, and she talks a lot about different types of cancers and where they're kind of coming from, and how she looks at cancer from this functional lens. And she talks about vitamin D deficiency and vitamin C and your oral microbiome, how that's really important. And when your oral microbiome is off, it can lead to certain types of cancer. So our body is meant to be in harmony with each other, with itself, right? And when there's a disconnect on one part, that's when the dysregulation starts happening. That's where disease has ability to enter the body. So a lot of cancer can be treated through the lens of lifestyle, which includes your sleep, your hydration, what you're eating, how you're supplementing, how are you not supplementing, what deficiencies in minerals do you have in your body, and parasites.
Interesting. Okay. I'm going to delve deep into that, I think, in the next 6 months after pregnancy.
It's just fascinating. The more we learn, the more empowered we become. And the more empowered we become, the better choices we can make for our personal health.
I think one thing that changed with me too, as soon as I started to kind of get control of my health and not feel like it was out of control, was like, if I can control this, and health seems so, especially when you're in the midst of being sick, so uncontrollable. It's like, if you can actually make a dent and change how your health is, what else are you capable of doing? Because that's like the most difficult thing for people. Relationships are one thing, work is one thing, but your health is like a monster you're trying to control.
A monster, and it requires discipline. So when you get a handle on having discipline around that, you can have discipline around anything. Yeah. Right? But it's like, how badly do you want to feel good? And how you feel will directly impact everything. How you show up as a mother, how you show up as a partner, how you show up at work or in your friendships. It all comes down to how good you feel.
Even the amount just being slightly anxious can determine the rest of your life too. Is like, how are you viewing your future? Yeah. Because if you're anxious, then you're like, well, I'm not capable of accomplishing that. And then you choose different. You choose a different path for yourself. And it's like, that's not even what reality should be like. Like, you should have this more positive outlook of the future and like be able to accomplish things. So you have to get health under control.
Well, you've been through mental health, right? And you talk about it and stuff. And when you shifted your perspective to dealing with your health and healing your body, your outlook on life completely changed.
Oh, like turned upside down. Right. It was crazy. So this whole thing with the gut-brain, connection and everything, and how we show up in the world directly, it comes from your sense of well-being. And if you don't feel well, how are you going to show up in the world? Okay. Do you have, let me see, let's get into a little bit about what you've learned for people. So if there are people interested in starting to biohack, where did you start, or where do you recommend people start on their biohacking journey?
You need to get your testing done. You need to look at your health from an individual lens. What works for me may not work for you. My DNA is different. My background is different. My ethnic background is different. My trauma story is different. So you need to look at yourself. And I would start with detailed kind of hormone testing. I would definitely get a gut, like a stool test done. I would do a urine test and be like, what is my level of environmental toxins? Is my body, especially if you're a woman and you're listening, is your body producing hormones correctly? We are also, as women, going into menopause sooner and sooner and earlier. What is causing that, right? And that a lot of that has to do with stress, endocrine disrupting chemicals that are coming in through our personal care products, our food system. And so I would start by looking at my body and getting understanding of my baseline and then building from there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because otherwise you're all over the place, right? You have to first find out what is the problem in you, or not a problem, like where do you have to start in order to start fixing it? And then don't go at it all at once. Do it piece by piece, because if you go from never having done supplements or never having done peptides to, being stricter with your diet or being more conscious about going to a restaurant that might be seed oil free and how you're cooking at home, and it can get overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And I personally, when I did this environmental toxin test, what I discovered in my body is I was really heavy, like really overloaded with BPAs. And I was like, how is this possible? I literally went through my entire house and changed everything to glass, everything. And it took me a minute. And I was like, where is this even coming from? So our cookware obviously changed because of toxins. I changed our storage containers. We removed any form of plastic that we could from the house. So I've had to really look at it from a piece by piece perspective. But if I did that all at once, I'd be extremely overwhelmed.
Did you remove plastic period, or did you go for the safer plastics?
No, we've removed, let's say 95% of plastic, but let's say our storage containers for food, the bottom is obviously glass, so the top is maybe plastic. Mm-hmm. So things like that, but we've removed a lot of plastic completely from our lives. I don't drink from plastic bottles if I can avoid it 100%. Containers, takeout, all of that stuff. So we're just more mindful. But the days that I do, because you do have to live and that's just life, I do take that gooey stuff I sent you, the Body Bio PC, and I cannot tell you enough. Research, they have data showing this, that if you are high in environmental toxins and plastics and all of this stuff, you take that product, like I take 2 tablespoons a day, your toxin levels will stay very low.
Interesting. So have you been able to measure BPA in blood work or something?
Yes.
And then see measurable differences when removing plastics from your house?
Yes, because this protocol that I was doing, she was testing my blood every 3 months, right? So I have to pull up my numbers. I don't have them on me, but my BPA was really, really high. And also I was really high in something like nickel, really random stuff. I was like, where is this even coming from? And it was exposure to things when I was young as a child. And yes, every 3 months, her job is to get you back to baseline, which is as clean as humanly possible. Now,
cool.
Plastics are being used in everything. They're in our workout clothes. They're in our underwear. They're in every little thing. So it's not just about a plastic water bottle. Microplastics are so embedded into our world these days. I think that some research showed that you're taking in about 1 credit card worth of plastic a week. And I think you have 40% of our brain has microplastics in it. So can you completely be plastic free if you want to if you don't want to move to the jungle? No, that's not possible. But you can make a very conscious decision in what to integrate and just go through life a little bit more consciously, and then take products that will help you regulate the exposure that you do have.
I told my dad about the percentage of people's brains that were made out of plastic now, and his response, and I don't know if anyone else on the planet has this type of response, but it was isn't plastic inert? Who cares? And I was like, well, no. I was like, that's one way to think about it. It's probably not great to have plastic in your brain.
Yes.
But he's like, well, what is it even doing? Is there research on what BPA and what plastic in the body is actually doing to your health?
I mean, I definitely think in terms of from a cellular perspective, it's damaging you, right? More women are kind of being pushed. For example, let's talk about a female health perspective. If you have plastics in your body, is a foreign object in your body. So your body sees it as a toxin, right? Your body sees it as a toxin and starts like focusing on trying to clear it up and what is going on here. So your body's not functioning at its optimal, right? That is viewed as an foreign object in your body that doesn't belong in your body. So anything that doesn't belong in your body, right? It slows you down. It causes disease. It starts creating like irregularity in your cells. So I don't know if there's a full research done. We'd have to look into it, but just looking.
It seems bad.
Of course it's bad. It's like personal care products that are really high in phthalates. Well, what does it do? It breaks down your cellular health. It causes disruption to how your body's supposed to be ebbing and flowing. And Mikhaila, the big thing that people don't remember is our DNA has not evolved since the dawn of time, right? Our environment has evolved. We are not meant to be with such glaring lights, be in such plugged in, have EMFs around us and stuff. Our cells are going AWOL because we have advanced so far as a society, but our DNA hasn't progressed the same way. We're also walking around completely unregulated with our nervous systems.
Oh, okay. Let's pause. Let's get into that a little bit. Because I've seen you post online a bit about that. Yeah. Do you have 3 tips for people for nervous system regulation? 3 tips. Grounding. First thing in the morning, trying to get in natural light really does help. So really helps regulate your circadian rhythm, helps regulate your nervous system. I personally at home have a red light device. So what I try to do is, I'm not somebody who can meditate for a long time. I'll just be really honest. But I do try to do 10 to 15 minutes in front of my red light. Just sit there, even if it's just deep breaths and it's kind of belly breathing and you're moving the air around and just kind of grounding yourself. And your mind is so powerful. So when you tell yourself first thing in the morning, I've got this, I've got my day, I feel grounded, I feel sure of myself, I'm centered, it creates a really good feedback loop to your nervous system. So that's the second tip I would definitely give. Things like breath work for a lot of people. I haven't done long periods of breath work. My husband loves it. And ice baths. Ice baths is a really great one if you can constantly bring yourself to do it. Then for women, you're not supposed to do it throughout your cycle. You're not. So when are you not supposed to do ice baths?
When you're on your cycle, you should not be doing it. You should cycle ice baths in and out because overexposure, there's some research showing doing too many ice baths also raises your testosterone levels in women. And so you don't want to be doing that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And then estrogen dominance. So I haven't delved into this at all. I've heard this popping up here and there. What does estrogen dominance look like symptom-wise? So estrogen dominance symptom-wise for me, how we discovered it is my body was producing these ovarian cysts. My hormones were completely off. My levels of my testosterone versus my progesterone was not, I wasn't feeling well, right? I'm going around bloated. I'm gaining weight in weird areas of my body. I've always been very petite, but I have weird weight that would hold in different places. And I realized, okay, my body's not clearing out estrogen properly. And it's because, then it leads to producing, in my cases, producing cysts and polyps. I'd get polyps in my uterus and I was getting these really, really painful large cysts. These are common too for anyone listening, and weirdly common. And
a lot of women are not told this, right? Because when you go to an OBGYN, they're just like, here, take the pill. And that's not figuring out the problem for you, right? And estrogen dominance can come from gene mutations. It's like the estrogen is just not clearing out of your body. So you need to take things that help you clear it. I started getting into this thing called Brock Shot. I have no affiliation with these guys. I just really think it's a really great brand. And it's broccoli seed sprouts. And what it does, it leaches the excess estrogen out of you and you kind of pee it out. And it helps your body be more harmonious. And how you can also test yourself for estrogen dominance is if you're having very, very painful periods. So your first couple of days of your cycle, you're bloated, you're really heavy. Women are not, this is misinformation. Women are not meant to have painful cycles.
Yeah, agreed.
If you are having a painful cycle, you need to look into that because that is not normal. And having things like PCOS, you should not be living with PCOS. PCOS is a metabolic disorder. Your body is shouting to you and saying, I am not feeling well. That's a metabolic disorder. So healing your baseline health, reducing inflammation in your body, watching out and seeing, are your cycles regular? Are they painful? Are they not painful? That is all signs to be like, okay, is this estrogen dominance? Is this PCOS? What's going on here?
And did you mostly, to get that under control, take supplements and then do blood work and just monitor it?
Food, diet has a big role in it. I know when I'm eating clean and I'm eating kind of more like keto style, So high protein, high fat, I feel better. I look better.
Yeah. Okay.
The minute I'm not celiac, I don't have a gluten intolerance, but the minute I introduce kind of gluten in, I don't feel as well. So it's having that kind of balance, bringing more of that in. It's just becoming more aware. What works for you, what doesn't work for you. Anything super starchy, my body does feel a little bit inflamed. So you just have to look for the markers. It's not rocket science. We try to complicate things, but if you really break it down and be like, keep a food diary, observe yourself when you're eating. I went from being like lactose intolerant to realizing it's because I'm having pasteurized milk versus non-pasteurized milk.
Okay, let's get into that then.
Yeah.
So I'm so lactose intolerant. It's not even funny. I wasn't, for my entire life. And then I cut out dairy, went on a really, really restricted paleo diet to try and get my health under control. So it was like almost keto, not quite keto, but like heavy protein, certain plants, things. Tried to reintroduce dairy. Now, this was in 2015. So I reintroduced like my favorite cheese. I don't know what was in the cheese. But anyway, went terribly wrong. I've tried it a number of times. Can't do it. Terrified of the idea of trying raw milk because I have this like underlying autoimmune disorder that's in remission. Right. But it was like, I don't know if dairy is just bad.
Gonna trigger it.
I've heard so many good things about raw milk, but I'm like, I don't know. Is it meant for baby cows?
Listen. The problem with dairy is when it gets pasteurized.
Yeah, okay.
Because you're losing all the good probiotics. And the reason people don't want to drink raw milk, me and Alex Clark bonded over this. I love raw milk. But traditionally, when I used to have dairy, I would break out, I would get acne, I'd just feel inflamed. Then I realized it's the pasteurization of the process that's destroying it, right? If you have milk in its actual natural form, unprocessed, organic, then you're getting all the benefits that really help with gut health. And we realized that your gut is a baseline of most diseases that show up, right? Everything it starts with the gut, you would say. And it's really, really good because of high levels of probiotics and the way it kind of is actually really healthy for you overall. So I think raw milk is having a really big comeback because you're seeing all the health benefits. I mean, Paul Saladino talks about this all day, about like high protein and having a raw diet. Raw dairy, raw milk, raw honey, and going back to an ancestral diet. And that's the whole thing. We're supposed to be eating like our ancestors, which is less processed food, more food, and the actual form it's supposed to be coming in, and how that's really healing for you.
Yeah. So what part of you feeling better do you credit to diet versus, I guess the other category would be supplements, or versus like sleep changes, other biohacking?
I would say that the person I am today is a byproduct also of a lot of plant medicine.
Oh yeah, okay.
So it wasn't just, you can't out-hack trauma. You can't out-supplement trauma. You can't trick your emotional body into feeling better.
That type of plant medicine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I really think that everybody's obviously different, but most of us have gone through some form of trauma in our life. Some of us are like me, maybe my story was a bit more extreme than others, but I felt that when I started taking care of my emotional body and started understanding a little bit of my past and kind of started detangling that, and the more work I've done over there, I've had a better grip on my health, and I've had more clarity around my life, and I've had more clarity around purpose, and then everything started flowing. And this is really the year, I will say, 2025, I'm going to be 42 this year. I feel like I'm fully living in alignment, not only with my purpose and who I am, but I'm also living in a state of flow.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. I didn't know that was going to take this kind of turn. So I found hallucinogens incredibly helpful. I think when I was really confused, like when I first started the health journey and was like, am I crazy? This was 2015. So everyone was telling me I was crazy for like cutting out processed foods and being like, plastic is bad. Well, what else in my environment? That smells weird. That light isn't the right type of light. I was like, what's going on? Am I insane? And psychedelics definitely helped. So what have you had experience with?
So I started my journey with, like, I would say plant medicine. I firstly personally relate more to the plant side of things versus a synthetic. I think just to break it out, like things like ketamine and stuff I've done in a clinical setting and stuff. The thing is that stuff is synthetic, and I feel like real plant medicine has a soul. It's old. It's alive in a very different way. The molecular structure is alive.
Yeah.
Plants themselves have wisdom. They were here before the dawn of time, right? So they have they've seen it all and done it all, you know? So I feel like plant medicine speaks to you very differently than synthetic medicines like MDMA or ketamine. I started my journey in plant medicine with ayahuasca. And I've been doing ayahuasca for 6 years now. I go at least once a year. I try to. And it has completely changed my life. I've obviously done ayahuasca. I've done mushrooms recently that I posted about. I've done an iboga ceremony. And I've done bufo, which is the frog, which is a DMT.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And each one is completely different. Each medicine is completely different. The way it communicates is completely different. But I think for me, I would always go back to Aya because, and Aya is a female plant, by the way. She's known as a grandmother in sacred medicine circles, and it's been completely transformative. It's changed my life completely. I would not be who I am today and who I'm becoming without having these experiences.
So when you experience like that kind of transformation, is it telling you things that you didn't know at all, or that you think you kind of knew deep down and weren't paying attention to? If that makes sense.
It allows you to work through layers of your subconscious mind so you can actually get back in touch with yourself. We have been so programmed through fear, through our childhood, through trauma, through what the media feeds us, through our fears of not being good enough or, you know, having to follow the herd, that it helps you weed through all that noise and go back to your true self and get really clear in your core with who you are.
And do you think doing that calmed your nervous system down so 100%. That you could heal easier?
When your nervous system is constantly on edge, it's because there's a disconnect with the way you're living and what your soul is actually trying to say to you. Mm-hmm. And when you start going back more to your why and your purpose and going back to why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my journey? What am I here to do? You get a really big sense of peace and calm because you realize you're on the right path, and that suits you. You know you're on the right journey. You know you're on the right path. That doesn't mean a shitty driver on the road is not going to stress you out, but there's a certain level of peace that enters your life and a certain level of calm that you haven't experienced before. And when you've done ceremonial work the way I've been doing it for like 6 years now, when things do come up, Mikhaila, because I've experienced such incredible euphoric peace, I'm able to recreate that experience because my body has felt that experience. So it's training your body. It's training your mind to go back to that place.
Interesting. Okay. That's cool. I like, when I first started trying to get healthy, I thought everything was woo-woo.
Yeah.
Even at that stage, even when I was like woo-woo, I was like, I'm also woo-woo. I don't know. But I think trying to figure out what you're meant to do so that you're not, it's almost like you're living a lie if you're doing something you're not meant to do. Yeah. And trying to figure that out is really complicated. I think like journaling can help, and like feeling your body when you're doing things. Mm-hmm. You're like, I don't want to do this. Maybe don't do it because maybe on a nervous system level, it's way worse for you than you think it is. But I can see how plant medicine helps with that, or like just cuts through it instantly.
Yeah, it just cuts through
it.
Like
speeds up the process of trying to figure it out.
You know, when people are like, one, I will say, and I'll preface this for anybody listening, you have to be very, 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 very careful with who you sit with. Because you energetically are so open, so the people around you or energies coming in can make a difference. So choose the circle really wisely, right? But the beautiful thing about plant medicine is it will rip through the bullshit, and it's you against you. It's not you against somebody else. And it will take everything you need to work on and put it right in front of you like a deck of cards and say, do you want to do this or not? And if you want to do this, this is the path forward. And so for me, my plant medicine ceremonies have been so transformative. And obviously I don't want to talk about 6 years worth of plant medicine, but I'll break down 3 ceremonies I've had with Aya and kind of walk you through it. So my father didn't talk to me for about 9 years before he passed. He had a whole second family behind our back. He would not talk to me. Wow. And I'll get into how I found out he even died. The first time I went to do plant medicine was in 2019, November 2019. And I went to do an ayahuasca ceremony in Mexico, and I thought my mom would come through because I was closer to her. And nope, my dad comes through and he sits down, and I went into this inner child. I became like 5-year-old Iman, and I sit down and I'm just crying. And I was like, I missed you. We were best friends because I was very close to my father till I was 12. And then when I became older, it became he like rejected me. And he rejected me because he saw a lot of himself in me, but he saw a lot of my mother in me as well. And I turned out to be this very strong, independent woman. He did not like it because he couldn't control me. He controlled all the other kids through money. I'm the only child from both parents, but he could not do that with me because I had this very independent, fierce spirit. He comes during the ceremony and we talk and I cry and I air it out. And he said, in this life, I cannot be more for you. So you need to stop looking for better from me. I can't.
I'm too pregnant for this conversation.
Yeah. And I can't be more for you. And he says to me, I'm going to die. You're going to make me cry now.
Sorry. I don't usually cry. I'm like, that's
I'm going to
sad.
pass away and you need to be prepared for it because this is your closure. I'm giving you your closure. And I come out of the ceremony and I go to my husband, who's my boyfriend at the time. I don't know why I'm crying like this. And I go to my husband, well, he was my boyfriend at the time, and I said, he was like, how was your first ceremony? And I was like, how was my first ceremony? Great. I said, my dad came through. He said he's going to pass. He's like, you have not spoken to this man in 9 years. He's told you he's going to pass. And I said, yes. Mikhaila, my dad did die. He died in approximately less than a year. I found out he died through an Instagram DM where somebody sent me a picture of his body. Because a woman he married as a second wife behind our family's back buried him without telling us.
Oh my gosh.
And didn't tell his other kids, the ones from his, my mom was his second wife and then this woman was his third. And I remember getting that news, but because I'd had this experience in the ayahuasca ceremony, I was prepared.
Wow.
I was prepared for it. And it got me through it. And I was able to deal with his death in a very, very different way and have very different, profound understanding of what had happened. So that's one. That was my first encounter with ayahuasca, 2019.
That's insane.
Yeah. And if I hadn't done that ceremony, can you imagine the amount of questions or the pain I would have been in? Because I would always wondered what happened, you know? But because he spoke to me and he kind of prepared me for his death, it was like the biggest gift he probably gave me. Years go down the line, and I'll go into 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I want to start changing the trajectory of the company. Our agency is taking a beating. I've lost a lot of revenue. I lost $80,000 in monthly revenue.
Oh, that's hurt. That hurts.
My husband's, a banker and stuff. So he's looking at me from across the room and he's just like, what the fuck is going on here? How are you going to make payroll? What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. He's like, do you have a plan? And I was like, I don't know. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure it out. He's terrified for me. He's like, my husband is very frugal and I'm more the entrepreneur in the relationship. So he's looking at me and he's like, holy shit. I go, he's like braced for impact. I think I give him a lot of anxiety the way I am. He's like, this girl always is living on the edge. And I go into this ceremony and I get with the medicine and I'm like, please, for the love of God, I cannot do this anymore. I have a team, I have overheads, I have employees, help me. And the medicine says to me, you're asking for this, but are you truly ready? And I was like, what the hell does that mean? I was like, are you truly ready for what you're asking for? Are you truly ready to show up as a CEO you have to be? Are you truly ready? Because you will work harder than you've ever worked in your entire life. You will sacrifice your personal life, but this is what it's going to take for you to get there. And I was like, yes, I'm willing to do it, whatever you want. And not only that, the medicine was like, the people who you sit with, because we've been sitting with the same people for 6 years, this is the spiritual family you've chosen. They may not be the same social class as you. They might not ever be as wealthy as you become. But remember that this is your container. These people have held the space and prayed for you to get to where you are. So never forget where you come from and never forget the people who help you get there. Mikhaila, I came back from that ceremony. Within this course of 6 months, our business turned around. We became so profitable. We started getting in all these kinds of clients that people I wanted to work with. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And then my most recent ceremony was probably my most impactful. So last September, just now, I went to an ayahuasca ceremony. I went to Ecuador. And it's my second night of my ceremony. And I've never been so out of it, but now I know it's because I did this deep cellular detox and my body was really clean when I was going in for the medicine. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's the second night. We sit 3. So we sit 2 nights and then we take a break and we sit in a day ceremony. So it's the second night. My head tilts back and I feel like this light going through, literally enter my throat and go into my chest and start expanding my chest. And I hear a voice, clear as day. This voice comes through and it's like, will you surrender your soul and your life to me? Now, if I was Christian, I'd be like, oh, this is Jesus Christ. But I'm not. So I'm like, what is this? I'm Muslim. So I'm like, what is this voice? And it just says to me, I'm asking you to surrender. And if you surrender, I will put you on the path that you're meant to be on, and I'll put you in rooms with people and places, and you will never have to ask me how you got there, but you will know that this is for your highest good. And you need to live a life in service to me, because through you is how I create, through you is how I show up in the world. I was like, oh, this is God. And it was the most insane experience. And so it was almost like in that ceremony when I'm on it, it's almost like I gave like the reins of my life over and did not ask any questions. But now that I look back on it, it wasn't only a surrender to God and Creator, it was a surrender to myself in order to walk the path that I meant to walk. And that same night, this is so crazy, I had been kind of on this like big yo-yo with like having children and having a lot of anxiety around it because something that happened in my 20s. And my mom comes through. She's carrying our daughter and she goes, look, I've been keeping your baby. And this little girl starts speaking to me and she goes, I've been here all along. You don't listen. You are so caught up in your own fears and your own mind. I'm trying to come through and you're not allowing me to come through. And I asked her, and at the time I thought I had a massive fibroid. I'd have to get a surrogate, all of this stuff. And I asked her, how do you want to come through? And she starts laughing. She's like, don't worry about how I'm going to come through. Start paying attention because I'm ready to be next to you and you are not ready for me. Like you're not paying attention. I'm right here. And she says to me, I'm going to blow your mind. You have no idea who I'm going to even be or how much I'm going to expand you, but you need to be ready. And I come back from the ceremony. It was in September. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of work on my fertility from a health perspective, but my numbers start changing. I thought I had this fibroid, like I said, and I had to get a surrogate. Turns out I don't need to get a surrogate and I can carry. And now that I look back, I realized that this little girl was speaking about trauma that I had in my first marriage because I was married previously when I was in my 20s because I was in a really abusive relationship and what that did to my body. And when she said, you're not paying attention.
That's not surprising. Yeah.
Right. You are not being honest with yourself. And I kept on asking her, how do you want to come through? Is it through a surrogate? Do I adopt? Like, she's like, don't worry about how I'm going to come through. You need to prepare yourself.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
That last one almost got me too. This whole pregnancy and podcasting thing is not great.
And it's just crazy to me because I've had these out of body and just say that ceremony that says, I will put you in rooms with people and places that you will not even imagine how you got there, but you will know it's because you are meant to go there. You are meant to tell your story. You're meant to be in these rooms. And now when shit happens, like the most insane shit has started happening to me and opportunities come in or people come in and I'm like, okay, it's you. It's you because I made a pact with you that I'm going to walk in your light. I'm going to live out a purpose for you.
Wow. That's quite a story.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if people want to follow you online, where do they go? Where can I lead people?
So they can go to my Instagram, Iman, IMAN _ I have to get my whole name right. It's taken, but Iman _ Hasan, HASAN. Our podcast is called Biohack-it. And our agency is called IHC Agency.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll link everything in the description for anyone listening.
Thank you so much for having me on. I was just so excited to get to spend time with you. And I've loved you since I met you back in where I think we met in Arizona during one of the Tucker Carlson events.
Yeah.
And just your energy is incredible. You're an amazing human. So thank you for bringing me on.
Thank you. I don't think I've cried in a podcast in like 4 years or 3 years. It's been a while. So yeah.
Well, you know what? Different people bring out different emotions in you that you're meant to feel and experience. And so energetically, hopefully that relieved you of something.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully. Thanks, Iman. That was great.
Thank you.